My name is Nevra Necipoğlu, and I am a professor of Byzantine history at Boğaziçi University in Istanbul, which, as Koray Durak already mentioned yesterday, is going through rather difficult times these days and has been very much on the media, social media lately. So I have been teaching at the Department of History at Boğaziçi University, and I am also the founding director of the Byzantine Studies Research Center, also established at Boğaziçi University in 2015. My main areas of research are late Byzantine social and economic history, relations between the Byzantines, Ottomans and Latins, and late Byzantine Constantinople. I am very happy to be chairing this session devoted to Siren Çelik's new book entitled Manuel II Palaiologos, a Byzantine Emperor in a Time of Tumult, which is due to appear from Cambridge University Press at the end of this month. Siren Çelik is currently teaching at the History Department of Marmara University in Istanbul. She obtained her PhD at the University of Birmingham in 2016. Her main research interests are late Byzantine history, Byzantine literature, history writing, and daily life. She has been a junior fellow at Dumbarton Oaks and has received postdoctoral fellowships from Koç University's Research Center for Anatolian Civilizations, Boğaziçi University's Byzantine Studies Research Center, and most recently from Harvard University. Her publications, other than the present book that we are going to discuss, include an important article on the portrayal of the Ottomans in Manuel II's dialogue with the Persian, published in 2017 in Byzantine and Modern Greek Studies, and an article in Turkish on Byzantine literature published in the Journal of Medieval Studies, or its Turkish name, Ortaçağ Araştırmaları Dergisi, in December 2020, quite recently. I would also like to highlight two forthcoming works by her to be published in 2021. The first one is an anthology of Byzantine poetry, which will include selected poems from the 4th through the 15th century with Turkish translation, notes, and introduction. This is a book that is going to be published by Alpha Publications. It is under contract and is expected in 2021. And it's a very important contribution to the growing literature on Byzantium in Turkish. Her second forthcoming work is an article entitled The Imperial Office in Byzantium, which is to appear in a volume on Byzantine Anatolia being edited by Engin Akyürek and Koray Durak, and to be published by Yapı Kredi Publications also in the summer of this year. The book that Siren is about to present in this session is based on her doctoral dissertation, and I'm proud to mention that I happened to be one of the two outside readers of this dissertation, which was supervised by the late and greatly missed Ruth Makridis. The book is, in fact, and sadly, I must say, dedicated to Ruth. It is, I find it rather interesting, and some of you may have already noted this, that in this book festival, there are indeed two books on Manuel II. The second one by Florin Leonte, entitled Imperial Visions of Late Byzantium, Manuel II Palaiologos and Rhetoric in Purple, published by Edinburgh University Press in 2020, will be the subject of another session tomorrow. So I can already imagine some of you wondering whether we needed new books on Manuel II, given that there already exists an excellent and still extremely useful book on the same emperor that was written by another Byzantinist, whom we unfortunately also lost last year. I am, of course, referring to John Barker and his 1969 monograph, excellent monograph, on Manuel II, which bears the subtitle, A Study in Late Byzantine Statesmanship. Now, as far as Siren's new biography is concerned, the answer to my question, my rhetorical question, lies in fact in this subtitle. Unlike Barker's book, which focused on Manuel II as a ruler and analyzed the political events of his long reign from 1391 until 1425, Siren's new book covers the entire lifespan of the emperor from 1350 until 1425 and presents him as a ruler, author, and personality. Thus, the book offers an in-depth analysis of Manuel's personality, his daily life, and his literary output, and tries to place these in the context of the political events of his time. Most importantly, this book offers the first analysis of Manuel II's complete writings, vast corpus consisting of literary, theological, and philosophical works, by focusing on aspects such as his literary style, his self-representation, and his philosophical and theological thought, and so on and so forth, which I'm sure Siren is going to discuss in greater detail. So these are the most important contributions of this book, which also provides lengthy discussions of several works of Manuel to which previous scholarship had paid little or no attention, such as his panegyric to his father John V, or the epistolary discourse of Yacob, and others. Hence, what we have is an important new biography with a portrait of this multifaceted emperor, as the little blurb on the cover of the book to appear states. So with these words, I will pass the floor, or rather the screen, to Siren. Please go ahead, Siren.
Thank you very much for this wonderful introduction, Professor Necipoğlu. I have a PowerPoint, so I will try to share my screen. Okay, is it on screen now, the PowerPoint?
Yes, you may do it full screen if you wish. If you press, yeah, okay. Oh, not yet.
Okay, now I'll try.
Yes.
Now is it full screen? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Wonderful. So as Professor Necipoğlu has said, my book is a new biography of the author Emperor Manuel II Palaiologos, and it is a much revised and supplemented version of my 2016 dissertation. Now, of course, Manuel II is a well-known figure among Byzantine scholars, but for those of you who may be less familiar with him, let me give a little bit of background information on the emperor first. He ruled during the last decades of the Byzantine Empire, and consequently he endured lots of political turmoil, civil wars between his family members, a variety of important socio-economical problems, theological disputes, and also several sieges by the Ottomans. And in order to get help against the Ottomans, he actually visited as far as France and England. Because Manuel's life essentially sat at the crossroads of Byzantine, Western European, and Ottoman history, he also came into contact with many of the prominent figures of his age, such as the Ottoman sultans, the important Byzantine literati of the time, and also several European rulers. Now, of course, in Byzantine scholarship, Manuel is famed for being an author emperor. But mostly his works are only studied in order to get political insights into his reign. And for the most of the time, the literary aspects of his work are neglected. And when it comes to the selection of his works, usually it is the funeral oration or the dialogue on marriage, which have been translated into English, that are consulted. And some of his works do remain very much understudied. Now on the screen, you are also seeing an English illumination depicting the meeting of Manuel II with the white beard and hair. with the English King Henry IV. I have used this image in my upcoming book. Now, I have three main goals in this biography. The first one, and in my opinion, the most important one, is the study of Manuel as an author. As Professor Necipoğlu has just said, for the first time, I have offered a complete study of Manuel's entire work. Today, we have about 33 surviving works by the emperor, and they do cover a rather impressive array of genres. So we have dialogues, poems, letters, orations, and theological treatises, and many more. So by studying Manuel's corpus, I tried to paint a portrait of him as a writer. First of all, I argued for his literary merits, that I make the case that he shouldn't be only studied because he was an author emperor, but also because he was a gifted writer, and that actually the literary aspects of his works do deserve attention and recognition. And in order to do so, I have looked at some select aspects of his literary style, such as his use of metaphors, his imagery, his representations of the others, his character portrayal, and the allusions he makes to various biblical and ancient writers, and how through these devices he imbued his text with additional layers of meaning. A key inquiry in my book is also Manuel's self-representation. What sort of a persona did he adapt in his writings, and under which circumstances? And under this heading, I chiefly focus on how through a self-representation, he tried to sort of legitimize and defend his rule and various political decisions. Finally, I also explored Manuel's philosophical and theological thought. So, for example, I explored his ideas on the church union, his envisioning of a boundary between philosophy and theology, his dealings with theological controversies of the time, and I especially focused on his ethico-political thought, for example, on his reliance on Aristotelian ethics. And I didn't do this only for his ethico-political works, but I examined his ethico-political thought as also comes across in his dialogues and orations. A more subsidiary theme of my book is also to study Manuel as a ruler. Now, Professor Necipoğlu has quite rightly said that Professor Barker has already studied Manuel's statesmanship in his monumental biography. Now, this is a subsidiary theme of my book, so it is secondary to my other goals. But through my reading of Manuel's own work, some Venetian Senate deliberations, and Byzantine official documents, I tried to add some additional insights and interpretations into our perception into Manuel as a ruler. And I tried to incorporate the recent scholarship on Palaiologan history that have appeared since 1969. So I examined Manuel's governing style, not only during his years as the sole emperor, but also in the years when he was a younger prince. I looked at his preoccupation with the empire's dwindling finances and how he was trying to come up with various solutions to obtain funds, how he dealt with his diplomatic contacts and what sort of maneuvers did he employ. And the third theme in my biography was to study Manuel as a personality. And by that, I don't mean that one can actually know what exactly Manuel was like through his writings, but rather I tried to offer a more personalized biography of Manuel. And by this, I mean I tried to investigate his relationship with his family members, his friends, members of his literary circle, but also his foes, such as the Ottoman Sultan Bayezid, or various literati and ecclesiastical figures with whom Manuel engaged in rather heated polemics. I looked into Manuel's pastimes, such as his passion for hunting and horse riding. And also across the biography, I tried to flesh out Manuel's world and surroundings. Such as when I was discussing his childhood, I tried to imagine what sort of toys he might have played with as a child. Or when I was discussing the Palace of Laherna, I discussed Manuel's daily life as emperor, his daily receptions, his throne rooms and chambers. For example, when I was speaking about his travels to Europe, I spoke about the conditions on the ships when he was traveling, or when he visited London, what the English court at the time was like, and what sort of food he might have been presented with at a banquet. Now, in the grander scheme of things, perhaps this might seem to be a more trivial pursuit, but for my biography, I felt that this really breathed life into my narration of Manuel's life and sort of allowed Manuel to emerge as a flesh human being. And finally, I would like to conclude with a very few brief remarks on the structure of my biography and my sources. On the screen, you're seeing a signature of Manuel II on a chrysoprase, which is also published in my book. Now, in my biography, I have opted for a seamless chronological narrative. I start with Manuel's birth, his childhood, adolescence, and then I end with his death. I did not want to adopt a topical chapter division, such as Manuel as a ruler, Manuel as a literary figure, or Manuel as a thinker, because I felt that this would artificially split Manuel's multifaceted personality, as well as failing to showcase his eventful life. Because, at least in my opinion, what makes Manuel such an intriguing figure is that his life is so rich and everything is happening simultaneously. So he's dealing with an Ottoman siege, but also penning works, dealing with theological controversies, family problems. And I felt that a chronological narrative would suit this best. And into this seamless chronological narrative, I have embedded my analysis of Manuel's writings, which can mostly be securely dated. I also have some topical discussions, such as a more general assessment of Manuel as an author, Constantinople under Manuel's reign, or Manuel's daily life in the Vlaherna Palace. As Manuel's biographer, I was both blessed and also a bit cursed to have a very wide array of sources at my disposal. As you have probably guessed, Manuel's oeuvre formed the backbone of this biography. Also the works of the Byzantine literati, many of whom were members of Manuel's own literary circle. Byzantine histories and chronicles, and especially because Manuel traveled to Europe, we have at our disposal an abundance of Western European sources, ranging from Latin to medieval French, English, and Italian. For the period, we also have important travelers' accounts. To a lesser degree, I also did employ Ottoman chronicles like Aşık Paşazade and Neşri, the text of the Venetian Senate deliberations, which is a must for the political history of the period, Byzantine official documents like Manuel's Acts and his monastic documents, and finally, to a much lesser extent than my textual sources, I did discuss some art artifacts and numismatics like illuminations produced under Manuel, some objects associated with him, and his coins. So more or less, this was what I was trying to achieve in my biography. And it is, as Professor Necipoğlu said, due to appear at the end of this month, so 22 days left. And I hope when the book is published, eventually it will be well received. Thank you for listening.